Today, I'm taking a first look at the brand new and improved 57 PPD optical engine, allowing Crystal Super to render VR with even higher clarity and fidelity, thanks to 57 pixels per degree, literally retina-level clarity, an insanely high pixel density. And believe it or not only does the 57 PPD module enhance the resolution and visuals, but also dramatically improves the performance and frame rates on average. I know, it doesn't make any sense, right? Super is a modular headset with interchangeable optical engine. You simply slide in the module into the headset's housing, and this way can enjoy multiple configurations with one single headset without breaking the bank. This module, or optical engine as Pimax calls it, is literally a box housing the panels, lenses, eye tracking cameras, and a few other internals. Basically the most important component of the Crystal Super VR headset. Back when Pimax Crystal Super first was announced, Pimax decided to go for a wider field of view module to begin with, offering a 50 PPD optical engine with less pixel density but more field of view. And that makes sense for most people, including me, since 50 PPD already is crazy high pixel density. Apart from the currently available 50 PPD optical engine, we now also have a 50 PPD ultra-wide field of view engine, giving us close to 140 degrees horizontal field of view, by sacrificing a bit of the binocular overlap while keeping the same pixel density. But what happened to that 57 PPD module? Well, as always, or almost always with Pimax, promises made and promises kept. The 57 PPD optical engine has now passed the final stage of development, entering production phase and aimed for shipping very soon. And here it is. I have spent a couple of days with it, and now I will share my honest opinions, including pros and cons, both the advantages and also the trade-offs. But before we begin, some of you may not know what PPD, or pixel per degree, really means, so I will give you a quick visual presentation of what PPD refers to and how a higher PPD affects the VR image overall. Let's jump into DCS world. This is only a screen-recorded VR gameplay, but let's pretend we're looking at the actual VR view in the Crystal Super. With the standard 50 PPD optical engine, I get roughly 126 degrees of horizontal field of view in the headset. Now let's add the theoretical field of view grid. Every vertical strip represents one horizontal degree. In other words, each line separates every horizontal degree you see in VR out of the 126 degrees visible. To visualize it better, here are the central 10 degrees and then the central 5 degrees. Now we're going to narrow it down even further to just 1 degree field of view, and then let's zoom in on what we actually see within that 1 degree of field of view. Now I will add a theoretical pixel grid. So for each single degree of field of view, you see a pixel matrix containing rows of 50 horizontal pixels each that renders the image. It's quite insane how far VR has come, don't you think? The higher PPD value a VR headset has, the bigger number of horizontal pixels are rendered per degree. In other words, the more pixels that are utilized per degree, the higher definition you'll get. By higher definition, I refer to a higher perceived resolution, giving more details and potentially a sharper image with even more clarity. In the case of 57 PPD versus the 50 PPD, a 57 PPD headset has, according to my own calculations, roughly 14% more horizontal pixels utilized per degree, which is 7 additional pixels from 50 to 57, of course. 14% higher pixel density, or 7 extra pixels per degree, might not sound like a lot, but it's definitely noticeable with your eyes, trust me, we'll get into that in a moment. Especially in VR simulators like DCS World, where the tiny details in the cockpit, those small gauges, knobs, numbers and dials, are rendered with a higher definition thanks to more pixels used. In VR, the image is also always moving a little bit due to your head movements. This makes edges of very tiny objects to deform, flicker, or look less detailed when the pixel count is not high enough. Well, I'm not saying that 50 PPD is not enough, but with an even higher number of utilized pixels across your rendered VR view, you can enhance the image even further. Small round objects, for instance, look more round since the edges are rendered by a higher amount of pixels. Obviously, more pixels per degree also produces less aliasing, or an image with less jagged edges, potentially removing the need of using anti-aliasing filters in games and VR simulators. When doing through-the-lens photos and the videos of these high pixel density headsets, the difference between 50 and 57 PPD is extremely hard to catch on camera, but it's surprisingly easy to spot with your eyes. So far, this all sounds amazing, don't you think? Well, there is a catch. There are trade-offs that need to be made to achieve a higher pixel density. We already know that both the 50 and 57 PPD modules for Crystal Super use the same QLED panels, having same physical size with the identical resolution of 3840 by 3840 pixels per eye or per panel. So a higher pixel density or a PPD higher than 50 could only be achieved on the Super with different set of aspheric glass lenses and also by limiting the field of view. Yes, making the field of view smaller. The field of view is noticeably smaller with 57 PPD. According to my results, using the latest Test HMD application, the 57 PPD optical engine gives me a horizontal field of view of 102 degrees, while the vertical field of view is cut down to 94 degrees. So yes, it's a considerably smaller field of view, both horizontally and vertically, than what the standard 50 PPD module is offering, of course, which is around 126 degrees horizontally and 114 degrees vertically. And this probably doesn't come as a surprise. Obviously, squeezing out a higher pixel density out of the same QLED panels is not black magic, it's engineering. And it requires sophisticated development of new aspheric glass lenses that optically project a less wide VR view while still maintaining the same panel utilization, which is roughly 29 million pixels combined. Now, I hope you understand what pixels per degree means and the theoretical differences between Crystal's 50 and 57 optical engines. Let's talk about how this new 57 PPD version actually performs in comparison. Before trying this new module, I wasn't expecting much of a difference. I actually thought I didn't need more pixel density than what the 50 PPD already offers. But I was so wrong. While creating this video as of today, I'm honestly curious to hear what Sebastian and Marco from MRTD, Thomas from Voodoo DE, and Steve from VR Flight Sim Gal will tell you once they get hands-on with the 57 PPD module. But if you ask me, the Crystal Super 57 PPD optical engine is, in my opinion, noticeably sharper overall. I wasn't expecting that, really. And the vastly improved performance might also surprise you. But let's get to that in a moment. Already in Steam VR home environment, it just hit me. The clarity, like, I know 50 PPD is really good already, but 57 PPD is insane. And it's so sharp. Look, I'm a 43-year-old guy. I'm getting old now, I know, but luckily my vision is still perfect. Probably better than 20/20 vision even, or whatever it's even called, and I definitely see a noticeable difference, improved clarity and higher resolution with the 57 PPD optical engine. It's way more obvious than I ever anticipated. When running render quality or image quality at 1.0 in Timex Play, let's head over to Steam VR environment. I have a spot where I often test sharpness and readability. It's right next to the big tree. Go over there, turn around so you're heading the house, and look at the board on the wall with the list of games. It is far away, but not that far away. I mean, you can probably read the text even on an Pimax 8KX, but how clear and sharp is the text then? Well, comparing 57 PPD to 50, it makes a big difference. On the 57 PPD, text is super sharp, like I've never seen before. Then, using same Crystal Super headset and swapping back to 50 PPD optical engine, it's readable, but the text has noticeably less definition and it's just not as clear. I tried to frame this with my camera and it's hard, so I moved closer to the house to give you an idea. There is a specific spot you can teleport to. Now you should see the difference. But in VR, it's way more obvious, trust me. Next, restart SteamVR home environment so that you end up on the default spot. Now, look at the books standing on the shelf. Using standard 50 PPD module running render quality or image quality at 1.0 in Pimax Play, even at that crazy high resolution, you still see those jagged edges. Switching to the 57 PPD module and those jagged edges are basically gone. Not only on the books, but everywhere. Literally everywhere I'm looking. No jagged edges at all. The image 57 PPD renders is just so clean and free of aliasing. In the ROV test environment, which is available for free in SteamVR Home, it makes the difference even more obvious. I can stand ridiculously far away from the Snellen chart and still read the smallest letters on the bottom line. I stand right behind that beach ball. Is it like 8 or 9 meters away from the chart? Same for the board full of text on the right side. I can read the smallest lines of text at the top by standing outside of the measurement area on the floor. Is that maybe like 6 meters away? I can even read the smallest letters on the middle test chart next to the Snellen chart by standing maybe 4 meters away. I couldn't believe my eyes. So I thought now it's time to try something for real. I fired up DCS World with quad views. And my usual settings I use running OpenXR, render quality at 1.0, eye tracking, quad views with the new custom parameters as seen here, while getting fully stable 90 frames per second. But the thing is, it looked way sharper now, and basically no aliasing at all on those tiny details. A noticeably sharper image overall, more definition at distance, and also in the cockpit of this FA-18 Hornet. It looked incredible. It might be hard to see on these through the lens videos and photos, but take a look at the green display or the digital display indicator on the right side of the cockpit, the one showing a vertical line moving across the screen. On Crystal Super 50 PPD, if you lean back in your chair, unless you super sample the resolution like crazy, that line will always look aliased. On 57 PPD, the aliasing or the jagged edges are more or less gone, and it all looks even sharper now. So how can 14% more pixel density look that much better? After all, I am running the same resolution with both 50 and 57 PPD modules, or do I? Then I saw it. Maybe I'm blind, but it took a while until I noticed it. I realized something that did not even hit me until I checked the actual rendered resolution in SteamVR. All of a sudden, nothing made sense anymore. At render quality set to high, which is 1.0, SteamVR reports 4348 by 4556 pixels per eye. That is a much lower resolution than what is rendered at 1.0 when running Crystal Super 50 PPD module. I mean, it's 4348 by 4556 versus 6240 by 6280 pixels per eye. And despite a much lower resolution rendered, 57 PPD at 1.0 render quality looks significantly sharper than 50 PPD at 1.0. How is that even possible? At render quality set to medium, which is 0.75 and the default settings, SteamVR reports 3260 by 3416. In comparison, Crystal Super 50 PPD optical engine, also running at 0.75, renders a resolution of 4680 by 4708, I think. That's even higher than what 57 PPD renders at 1.0. And believe it or not, the 57 PPD module at 0.75 render quality looks significantly sharper than 50 PPD at 0.75. The image that the new 57 PPD module renders just looks so good, clean, free of jaggies, and simply sharper. And since the render resolution is so much lower after all, we gain huge performance gains also. So if you normally run games at render quality 1.0 with the resolution of 6240 by 6280 pixels per eye, now with the 57 PPD module, you keep that 1.0 setting, you get better clarity and you get significantly better frame rates thanks to much less pixels actually being rendered. Now really, this is the sharpest image I have ever seen in VR. Like, hands down. Again, I don't know how this was done or how this is even possible. I suspect while developing the 57 PPD optical engine and the distortion profile for the new lenses, Pimax must have found optimal render resolution for these panels. It scales perfectly onto the panels, I think, no matter what render quality is used. So it has to do with the image processing somehow. I cannot believe it's only because of the 14% higher pixel density with the 57 PPD compared to the 50 PPD. Then the smaller field of view rendered could be the reason why the render resolution on the 57 PPD is so much lower. But then again, it looks so much better now also. So still, it's just weird. To round this up, we also need to mention the few downsides or trade-offs that the 57 PPD module introduces. The two commonly discussed issues I looked for were Mura and chromatic aberration. Mura was the same as with my other two Crystal Super 50 PPD optical engines. It's there, but it's not really obvious, and honestly, I don't mind the faint Mura when looking up at the bright sky when flying in VR, so personally I never seen this as a huge problem. Chromatic aberration, on the other hand, is a bit more apparent here, at least compared to Crystal Super 50 PPD version. Not in the center part of the view, but in the peripheral area. Maybe 50 degrees out and further, chromatic aberration, or color fringing as it's also called, is easily spotted. This is probably related to the new 57 PPD lenses, and I have my hopes up it can be fixed or at least improved with software over time. When I strapped on the Crystal Super with the new module, the first thing I noticed was that it is now way more important to set your correct IPD value. For me, it's perfect around 69.5mm, which is my real IPD conferred by an optician. But if I go higher or lower, it instantly feels a bit off. So I assume that the sweet spot area of the new 57 PPD optical engine or its lenses is slightly smaller. Therefore, both the wearing position and the correct IPD is crucial here for best results. So having all that in mind, who is the 57 PPD optical engine for? Well, 57 PPD is not for everyone. I'm sure there are people who will struggle to even see the big difference between 50 and 57. For the casual gamer or the person who loves wide field of view, this won't really be an upgrade. But for the picky enthusiast, maybe like me, the guy with 20/20 vision expecting the highest clarity possible in VR today, maybe flying DCS World or a Microsoft Flight Simulator on a daily basis, and a person who values extra clarity and extra performance more than the wider field of view, then the 57 PPD is a perfect upgrade, I think. And I think you need to test the 57 PPD optical engine on your own to really understand what I mean. And I look forward to soon hear your thoughts about it. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one.